Yeah, so I think this is, I think most people, the difficult part of colonoscopy is often the sigmoid colon. It's often the biggest challenge, and it's the most likely place you're going to cause patient discomfort, and it's largely because of this. The sigmoid, this is two-dimensional plane, but you get you'll understand the concept. In the first panel, there's a small bend, but as we push in, the mesentery stretches here. This comes up, and actually, it's not just the fact that you're pushing this up. If you look at these angles change as you push in. They actually become more and more acute. And obviously, the more you stretch this mesentery here, the more pain there is. The concept I was trying to describe yesterday, and I'm not sure how successful I was, but your obvious route through the colon is that one. But the problem is when you reach this bend here, this is what's going to happen. So at this point here, put it in red. At this point here, you have to change your strategy. Otherwise, your progression will look like this. So the strategy here is when you reach this point here, I'll put the scope in. So with your scope in that position there, what I would like you to think about doing, and this is true throughout the colon, this is the same technique throughout the colon when you go around a bend, is that at this point position here, you start to pull back. It's just a bit fat. You start to pull back. And this point here, you try and engage here or here on a fold. So as you come back, you actively engage the fold. So to do this, you have to firstly, if you think about the sequence, you have to pass the fold here. So you go past the fold, you add angulation, and then you start pulling back. And your tip catches on here or here. And in that process, the action of pulling back will also pull this down. And the sequence happens is, so if I just draw the colon itself, we've gone from this position. And then we pull back and we engage the fold maybe here. And because when we pull back, if I draw the height in, as we pull back to here, you can see the rest of the colon now looks like this. And then we repeat the maneuver, because if you insert a little bit further, your tip is now down here, and we insert a little fold, we pick up the next fold, and then the next fold, and then the next fold. And as a consequence of that, instead of pushing through it, we call it pleating. And the pleating involves usually two actions in the sigmoid colon. It involves going up to a fold, catching a fold and pulling it back, and then often adding some torque steering. So if you think about going through the sigmoid colon, when we look on the image here, we look at this, and this is actually going from posterior to anterior. So the first time you come out of the pelvis, you use your hand, you come forward. And then for us, we tend to go tip up. So we put on a clockwise torque, and effectively you turn left. So if you're not sure, you take your hand in front of you and put your palm facing out. You come up posteriorly, you turn anteriorly. And then if you think of your own body, your sigmoid colon's on your left-hand side, you apply clockwise torque and you turn left. Okay? So you're doing two things. You're grabbing a fold, and if necessary, we normally apply clockwise torque. So this happens in the majority of the people, but occasionally you'll have a reverse alpha and you'll have to do something different. So you only persist with this if it is working and the scope's feeling easier and easier. If the scope's getting tighter and tighter, it's more difficult. You're probably applying the wrong torque. And remember, 90 degrees of clockwise torque is exactly the same as 270 degrees of anti-clockwise torque. So you can choose to turn the scope in terms of torque one way or the other, depending on which way makes the situation easier.